The bedroom door slammed behind me, echoing through the quiet hallway like a judge's gavel. My blankets, my books, my photos, all stuffed into garbage bags that threatened to tear with the weight of my life. My cousin stood in the doorway, grinning as if winning some secret game, holding the key to the lock I had called my sanctuary for 30 years. My parents sat in the living room, sipping coffee like nothing had happened, their expressions calm, almost rehearsed. I clenched my fists, forcing my body to stay upright. The anger and humiliation collided in my chest, sharp and unforgiving. "You rented out my room while I was sick?" I asked, my voice shaking. "You took my space, my life, my memories like they were nothing?" My mother glanced at my father. Neither answered. My cousin dangled the key. "It's just business, Morgan. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. My name is Morgan Pierce. I'm 36 years old. Until this day, I had been the dependable daughter, the caretaker, the one everyone relied on when life got messy. And now, in seconds, everything I'd trusted about my family shattered. Started 6 months ago when my illness worsened. The diagnosis came like a thunderclap. Chronic fatigue syndrome, complicated by an autoimmune disorder that left me exhausted, weak, unable to work full-time. I needed rest. Patience. I thought my parents would step up. They had always been my safety net. The people who said family meant everything. Instead, I noticed subtle changes. Conversations hushed when I entered the room. Doors that had always been open suddenly locked. Bills handled without my knowledge or input. My bedroom, the room I'd lived in since childhood, the room I'd moved back into after my apartment became too expensive to maintain while sick, had become a stage for their silent betrayal. I never imagined the people I loved most could see my weakness as an opportunity. But greed has a way of transforming people into strangers. And my family, it turned out, were experts at exploitation. The signs had been there. I just hadn't wanted to see them. I demanded answers, my voice tight with fury. My mother smiled, a thin, practiced thing that didn't reach her eyes. "We're just helping the family financially, Morgan. You've been ill, you can't contribute to household expenses anymore. We needed the extra income. You understand, right?" "Understand." I laughed bitterly, a sound I barely recognized coming from my own throat. "You sold my space. You didn't ask me. You pretended I don't exist when I needed help most." My father's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He never did when confronted. He let my mother handle the difficult conversations while he hid behind his newspaper. My cousin shifted nervously, the key now feeling heavier in the room than it physically could. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked. "The couch," my mother said simply. "Until you get back on your feet." Couch. In my own home. After 30 years of being the reliable daughter who helped pay bills, who cared for them when they were sick, who sacrificed my own life for theirs. Couch. Morgan Pierce doesn't act on impulse. I left the house that day with every scrap of my dignity intact, but my mind racing with possibilities. Social services. Legal counsel. Documentation. I drove to a friend's house, someone who'd offered me a place to stay months ago if things got bad. I hadn't believed they would. Now I knew better. I photographed everything before I left. Keys hanging on hooks. The signed lease agreement I found on the kitchen counter, one I'd never approved. The bags of my belongings pushed into a corner like garbage. Every detail mattered. Every piece of evidence counted. My family thought they had power because I was sick, because I was vulnerable, because I depended on them. But I had something stronger. Had patience. I had intelligence. And now I had motivation. They'd underestimated me. It was a mistake they'd regret. I made my first call that evening. Adult Protective Services. My voice was calm, factual, precise. "I need to report financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult." The intake worker listened carefully. "Who's the victim?" "Me." I discovered my parents had lied about the lease the next day. They'd told the tenant, a young woman named Brianna, that the room had been empty for months. That they were helping a friend of the family by renting it affordably. No mention of me. No mention that my belongings were still there when she moved in. No mention that I'd been living in that room until 3 days ago. I contacted Brianna through social media, carefully, politely. "Hi, I'm Morgan. I think you're renting a room at my parents' house." She responded within an hour. "Yes, such a nice space. Your parents are so sweet." My stomach turned. "Can I ask what they told you about the room's history?" "That it was their guest room." "Why?" I sent her a photo. Me standing in that room 6 months ago, my belongings clearly visible. The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Oh my God." "Yeah," I typed back. "That's my reaction too." Brianna agreed to meet me the following day. She brought documents, the lease, the payment records, text messages from my mother. All evidence. My cousin bragged to a friend at a coffee shop downtown. I know because the friend, someone I'd gone to high school with, messaged me immediately. "Hey Morgan, I just heard something weird. Your cousin was laughing about how your parents are making money off your old room. Said you didn't even know." I screenshot the message, added it to my growing file. The friend, Kendall, agreed to write a statement about what she'd heard. Date, time, location, exact words. She seemed really proud of it, Kendall wrote. Like they'd pulled off something clever. It made me uncomfortable. My cousin had always been careless with secrets. She talked too much, trusted the wrong people, assumed everyone would find her schemes amusing. Now her loose lips were becoming evidence. I thanked Kendall and added her statement to the others. The file was growing thicker. Bank statements showing my contributions to household expenses. Medical records proving my diagnosis and limitations. Photos of my room before and after. Witness statements from neighbors and friends. Piece by piece, I was building an airtight case. And my family had no idea. My doctor provided detailed medical records at my request. Dr. Patel had been treating me for 18 months. She knew my history, my struggles, my limitations. "This is unconscionable," she said when I explained the situation. "You're a vulnerable patient. They're exploiting you during a health crisis." She wrote a detailed letter outlining my condition, my treatment plan, and the care I required. She documented that I'd specifically told her I was living with family because I couldn't afford my own place while unable to work full-time. "Your living situation was part of your treatment plan," she explained. "Stable housing, family support, reduced stress. They've undermined your health by doing this." I contacted Adult Protective Services again, providing the medical documentation. The caseworker's tone changed immediately. "This moves your case into priority status," she said. "We'll be conducting a home visit within the week." My heart pounded. It was happening. The machinery of justice, slow but inevitable, was beginning to turn. My family thought they were safe. Thought I was too sick, too weak, too dependent to fight back. They were wrong. My parents tried to manipulate me emotionally when I returned to collect more belongings. "How can you do this to us?" my mother asked, tears forming on command. "We're your parents. We raised you, fed you, clothed you." The guilt trip was expertly delivered. She'd had years of practice. "And I helped pay your mortgage for 8 years, I replied calmly. "I took care of Dad after his surgery. I put my life on hold to help you." "Family helps family," she insisted. "Exactly," I said. "So why didn't you help me when I got sick?" Silence. My father finally spoke. "We did help. We let you stay here. You charged me rent for the couch," I said quietly. "After you illegally rented my room to a stranger." "That room was never really yours," my mother said. "This is our house." "Then you should have asked me to leave properly. With notice. Not kicked me out while I was at a doctor's appointment." The reality of what they'd done seemed to finally register on my father's face. My mother's expression remained cold, calculating. She wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she'd been caught. I recorded every conversation after that first confrontation. One-party consent state. Legal. Admissible. My phone sat in my pocket, capturing every word. My mother's justifications. My father's weak excuses. My cousin's careless comments about the money they were making. All documented. All timestamp. All evidence. They kept talking, kept explaining, kept trying to make their actions sound reasonable. And I kept recording. During one particularly revealing conversation, my mother admitted they'd been planning this for months. "We knew you'd be upset," she said. "But we needed the income. Your illness was dragging on too long. Too long. As if I'd chosen to be sick. As if chronic illness followed a convenient timeline." My father nodded along. "We thought you'd understand eventually. Family sacrifices." "I'm the one sacrificing," I said. "I'm the one who lost my home." "You're being dramatic," my mother replied. I stopped the recording and left. Let them think I was being dramatic. Let them underestimate me. It would make the fall harder. My cousin attempted to hide my possessions in the garage. I caught her in the act, arriving unexpectedly with Kendall as a witness. Boxes marked donation contained my photo albums, my childhood books, my grandmother's jewelry that had been left to me. "What are you doing?" I asked calmly. She jumped, startled. "Oh, Morgan. I was just organizing. By stealing my inheritance." "It's not stealing. Your mom said we could donate old stuff." Picked up a box. Inside, the silver locket my grandmother had given me on her deathbed. "This is theft," I said quietly. Kendall took photos with her phone. Every box, every item, every angle. My cousin's face went white. "I was just following instructions." "From whom?" She hesitated. "Your mom." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. They weren't just renting my room. They were erasing me entirely, removing evidence I'd ever lived there, preparing to deny everything. But evidence doesn't disappear when it's photographed, documented, witnessed. And I had all three. I made quiet calls to former neighbors who'd witnessed events. Mrs. Kowalski, who lived next door for 20 years, remembered seeing my belongings thrown out. "I thought it was strange," she said. "You'd just been home the day before, and suddenly there were garbage bags on the curb. I asked your mother about it. She said you'd moved out suddenly." "Did you see me move out?" "No. Just the bags." She agreed to provide a statement. Mr. Torres from across the street had seen the new tenant move in. "Your mom told me you were traveling for treatment," he said. "Said you'd be gone for months. Then I saw that girl moving into your room, and I wondered." He'd taken photos that day, just casual neighborhood snapshots. But they were time-stamped, dated, geotagged. Evidence. Another neighbor, someone I barely knew, had overheard my mother on the phone talking about finally getting rid of Morgan's stuff and making good money on that room. She'd been uncomfortable enough to write down the date and what she'd heard. People notice more than you think. And when something feels wrong, good people document it. My parents claimed I'd abandoned my room during a tense family meeting. They'd invited my aunt and uncle, presumably for backup, for witnesses to their version of events. "Morgan left," my mother said firmly. "She moved out without telling us. We waited weeks, then decided to rent the room." "That's a lie," I said calmly. Pulled out my phone. Opened my calendar. "Here's a doctor's appointment on the day you changed the locks." I was gone for 3 hours. When I came back, my room was empty and Brianna was moving in. I showed them the calendar entry, the medical records from that appointment, the timestamp on photos I'd taken that morning showing my belongings still in place. "You kicked me out while I was at the doctor." My aunt's expression shifted. "Is this true?" My mother's face flushed. "She's exaggerating." "I have witnesses," I continued. "Neighbors who saw my belongings on the curb. The tenant who thought the room was empty when she moved in. Text messages where you told people I'd moved out." My uncle looked at my father. "Did you really do this while she was sick?" My father couldn't meet his eyes. The narrative was crumbling. Social services sent their first warning letter to my parents that week. A formal notice of investigation into allegations of financial exploitation and illegal eviction of a vulnerable adult. My mother called me furious. You reported us. Your own parents. You evicted me, I said quietly. Your own daughter. We gave you life. And I gave you 8 years of financial support. Guess we're even. She hung up. The letter outlined the investigation process. Home visits, interviews, financial audits. Everything my parents had done would be examined under scrutiny. The rental income. The disposal of my belongings. Timeline of events. All of it. I felt a weight lift from my chest. This wasn't just me anymore, making accusations, looking like a bitter daughter. This was official. Documented. Government-sanctioned investigation. The power dynamic had shifted. My family's biggest weapon had always been my dependence on them. My need for shelter, for financial help, for family support. But I'd found other support. Friends. Legal aid. Social services. I wasn't alone anymore. And they were terrified. My aunt sided with me quietly, feeding me inside information. Your mother is panicking, she told me over coffee. She's trying to find a lawyer, but she doesn't want to spend money on it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Your father feels guilty, my aunt continued. He wants to fix this, but he doesn't know how. Your mother keeps insisting they did nothing wrong. My aunt had always been different from my mother. Kinder, more honest, less willing to bend the truth for convenience. I'm sorry I didn't help sooner, she said. I didn't realize how bad things were. It's okay, I said. You're helping now. She told me about conversations she'd overheard. Plans my parents were making to hide income from the rental. Attempts to pressure Brianna into lying about the timeline. All of it became ammunition. My aunt's guilt became my advantage. And slowly, systematically, I was building a case that would be impossible to defend against. Truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it. I organized all documentation into a comprehensive timeline. A binder, 3 inches thick, color-coded and indexed. Bank statements showing my contributions to household expenses, dating back 8 years. Medical records documenting my diagnosis, treatment, and limitations. Photos of my room before and after the eviction. Witness statements from neighbors, friends, the tenant, my aunt. The illegal lease agreement my parents had forged my signature on. Recordings of conversations where they admitted their actions. Text messages, emails, calendar entries. Every piece of evidence, organized chronologically, cross-referenced, unassailable. My caseworker from Adult Protective Services reviewed it during our meeting. She didn't speak for several minutes, just turned pages, her expression growing more serious. This is the most thorough documentation I've seen in 15 years, she said finally. Your parents are in serious trouble. Good, I said. She looked at me with something like respect. You're very methodical. I learned from the best, I replied. My mother taught me to always have backup plans. The irony made the caseworker smile slightly. My mother's own lessons turned against her. Tension filled the family dinner my parents insisted on having. They were pretending everything was normal, that no investigation was happening, that their daughter wasn't building a case against them. My mother served pot roast like we were a functional family. My father made awkward small talk about the weather. My cousin avoided eye contact entirely. I sat silent, observing, collecting mental notes. Every forced smile. Every nervous glance. Every tell that revealed their anxiety. They thought this dinner would fix things. That if they acted normal enough, reality would bend to match their performance. But reality doesn't work that way. And I was done pretending. The investigator wants to interview all of you next week, I said calmly between bites. The table went silent. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. We have nothing to hide, she said, but her voice wavered. Then you have nothing to worry about, I replied. My father's hand shook slightly as he reached for his water. My cousin excused herself to the bathroom and didn't return for 20 minutes. The dinner ended early. I left feeling stronger than when I'd arrived. A small victory arrived when my cousin lost patience. During a phone call with my aunt, overheard on speaker, she finally snapped. "I don't know why everyone's mad at us. Morgan's parents told me to keep her out of the room. They gave me the key. I was just doing what they asked." My aunt's voice came through clearly. "They told you to keep their own daughter out of her room?" "Yes. They said she was being difficult about the rental situation. That she'd try to sabotage it." The admission hung in the air. My aunt recorded the call. Sent me the file immediately. My cousin had just confirmed in her own words that my parents had planned and orchestrated everything. That the eviction was deliberate. That I'd been actively excluded from my own home. The caseworker added it to the evidence file. "This establishes intent," she said. "They can't claim it was a misunderstanding anymore. Intent mattered. It transformed their actions from a family dispute into something prosecutable. And my cousin, careless and impatient, had gift-wrapped the proof. My parents attempted to lease my room to a new tenant overnight. Brianna, uncomfortable with the situation after our conversation, had given notice. She was moving out at the end of the month. Within days, my parents had advertised the room again. But this time, Adult Protective Services intervened. The caseworker contacted my parents directly. "You are ordered to cease all rental activities related to the room in question pending investigation. Any violation will result in immediate legal action." My mother called me hysterical. "You're ruining us financially. We need that income." "You needed it enough to evict your sick daughter," I replied. "Now deal with the consequences. We have rights." "So do I." That came down. The room sat empty. And my parents, for the first time, faced the reality that their actions had repercussions. They'd spent so long believing family loyalty meant I would never fight back, never report them, never stand up for myself. They'd been wrong. And now they were paying for that miscalculation. A friend of the family discovered fraudulent signatures on financial documents. Stuart, who worked as a notary, had been asked by my mother to notarize some papers months ago. He'd noticed then that the signature looked wrong but hadn't questioned it. My mother was a family friend. He'd trusted her. Now, seeing news of the investigation, his conscience bothered him. He contacted me. "I think your mother forged your signature on a property document," he said. "I notarized it, but the signature didn't look like the one on your ID." My stomach dropped. "What kind of document?" "Something about a home equity line of credit." I requested copies from the bank. My mother had taken out a loan against the house, using my supposed consent as a co-resident. The signature on the document was similar to mine, but wrong in subtle ways. She'd forged it. Committed fraud. Used my identity without permission. I added it to the evidence file and reported it to the police. Financial fraud. Identity theft. The charges were stacking higher. My parents tried to shame me publicly at a community event. They approached me at the farmer's market, voices loud enough for others to hear. "How can you treat your family this way?" my mother demanded. "After everything we've done for you." People turned to watch. My mother's performance was practiced. Tears. Trembling voice. The appearance of a hurt parent. "But I'd prepared for this. You evicted me while I was sick," I said calmly, loudly enough for the gathered crowd to hear. "You rented my room without permission. You forged my signature on financial documents." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "That's not true," my mother protested. "I have documentation," I continued. "Police reports. Social services investigations. Witness statements from your own neighbors." Mrs. Kowalski, who happened to be shopping nearby, spoke up. "I saw Morgan's belongings thrown out while she was at a doctor's appointment. Her mother told me she'd moved out, but I knew that wasn't true." Other neighbors nodded. My mother's face went pale. The public shaming had backfired spectacularly. Social services scheduled an emergency inspection of the home. 2 caseworkers arrived without warning on a Tuesday afternoon. They examined my former room, now sitting empty after Brianna's departure. They interviewed my parents separately. They photographed the space, took measurements, reviewed the rental agreement. My father cracked during his interview. "We didn't mean for it to go this far," he said, according to the report I received later. "My wife insisted it was fine. That Morgan would understand eventually." He admitted they'd changed the locks while I was out. He admitted they'd disposed of some of my belongings without permission. He admitted the rental income had been unreported on their taxes. Every admission went into the official report. My mother, by contrast, remained defiant. "We did nothing wrong. Our house, our rules." The caseworkers left after 3 hours. Their report would determine the next steps: civil penalties, possible criminal charges, financial restitution. My parents' fate was being decided by the system they'd thought would never get involved. My parents panicked as legal notices arrived from multiple sources: Adult Protective Services, the Housing Authority for illegal rental practices, the IRS for unreported income, the police for financial fraud. Each envelope brought new terror. My father wanted to settle, to apologize, to make things right. My mother remained stubborn. "They can't prove anything." But they could. And they did. The evidence was overwhelming. The investigation thorough. The conclusions inevitable. I remained calm through all of it, attending meetings, providing additional documentation when requested, answering questions with precision. The system works slowly, but it worked. And my patience was paying off. My family's arrogance, their certainty that I was too weak to fight back, had been their downfall. They'd underestimated the quiet daughter. They'd mistaken illness for helplessness. They'd confused kindness with weakness. Now they understood the difference. Social services arrived for the final intervention on a cold Friday morning. 2 caseworkers, a housing inspector, and a police officer stood on my parents' doorstep. They presented the findings: illegal eviction of a vulnerable adult, financial exploitation, fraudulent financial practices, unreported rental income, forgery. The list was long. The consequences outlined in excruciating detail. My parents were ordered to return all of my possessions immediately. They were fined for illegal rental practices. They were required to reimburse me for the contributions I'd made to household expenses over 8 years. They faced potential criminal charges for the forged documents. My mother argued, pleaded, made excuses. None of it mattered. The evidence was incontrovertible. I stood outside, watching through the window as my parents' world collapsed under the weight of their own actions. Felt no joy. Only a deep, bone-tired relief that it was finally over. That I'd been believed, supported, validated. That speaking up had mattered. The cousin and parents faced further scrutiny as relatives distanced themselves. My aunt told other family members what had really happened. The story spread through family networks. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years called to apologize for not knowing sooner. My mother's sisters stopped taking her calls. The family gatherings my parents usually hosted were cancelled indefinitely. People who'd once defended them now avoided them at community events. Every lie they'd told unraveled. Every manipulation exposed. My cousin lost her job when her employer learned she'd participated in elder abuse. Her position having been in healthcare where such things mattered. My parents became pariahs in their own social circles. The people who'd once praised them now whispered behind their backs. Justice wasn't just legal consequences. It was social isolation from a community that no longer trusted them. It was the loss of reputation they'd valued above their own daughter's well-being. Morgan Pierce stood firm through all of it, dignity intact, knowing I'd done the right thing even when it hurt. I reclaimed my life piece by piece over the following months. My possessions were returned, though some things had been lost or damaged. I mourned those losses but didn't let them consume me. I found a small apartment I could afford with the reimbursement money and disability assistance. My health improved with stable housing and reduced stress. My room wasn't the same one from my childhood, but it was mine. Truly mine. The boundaries I'd established with my family remained firm. No contact unless absolutely necessary. No forgiveness without genuine accountability, which never came. My mother never apologized. My father sent a brief email months later saying he was sorry things had gotten so complicated. My cousin blocked me on all social media. But I didn't need their apologies to heal. I needed justice and I'd gotten it. I needed validation, and the investigation had provided it. I needed to know that standing up for myself wasn't selfish, and the support from friends and caseworkers confirmed it. For the first time in years I breathed freely, empowered by the knowledge that I'd protected myself when no one else would, that I'd turned vulnerability into strength, that I'd refused to be erased. My name is Morgan Pierce, and I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you're at your weakest and lifts you up instead of tearing you down. The family who betrayed me faced consequences they'd never imagined, and I moved forward finally free.